Welcome to this week's edition of EBC Sports International. I'm Zarita Sese, broadcasting from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Thanks for joining us. With me today on our program are EBC correspondents from around the world who will discuss sports topics during these interesting times. We hope everyone is staying safe and doing their part during this pandemic. Now let's meet our correspondents. In Quezon City, Philippines, we have Ben Bernaldez.
Good day, everyone. Welcome to the show.
In Las Vegas, Nevada, we have Aljamain Santos.
What's up, Zarita? What's up, everybody?
In Seattle, we have Michael Hudson.
How you doing, everybody?
In Washington, D.C., we have Ken Cruz.
Bringing my best, Mamba mentality.
And my honorary Canadian, Zolty Horvath in Vancouver, BC, Canada.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Thanks, guys, for joining me today. So before we get into our weekly discussion, here's some sports news that made headlines this week. Starting off with Major League Baseball, it was announced this week that the 2020 Hall of Fame induction weekend events that were supposed to take place in July has been canceled due to COVID-19 concerns. Among those to be inducted were Derek Jeter, Marvin Miller, Ted Simmons, and Larry Walker. Instead, they will join new inductees of the 2021 Hall of Fame class in Cooperstown, New York. It will be the first time since 1949 where the ceremony will include multiple classes of inductees. Now we're going to head over to Ken for some NBA news.
Thanks, Rita. So the NBA is considering playing the remainder of the 2019-2020 NBA season at the happiest place on earth. Some quick details of the Disney World Resort. 12 on-site basketball courts, 2 of which are broadcast ready at the ESPN Wide World of Sports complex. Enough hotel rooms to house every player, coach, official, television crew member, and more. Several nearby medical facilities for injuries, restaurants, swimming pools, and other amenities to starve off boredom. Private property that can be easily blocked off from the public. A parent company in Disney that has already ties to the NBA through ESPN. So it's hard to think of another place in the country that can boast of all that. And now it appears the NBA might be receptive to the pitch. Also, breaking news, the NBA announced today that it has indefinitely postponed the NBA draft and combine, which were scheduled for later this month. Back to you, Zarita.
Thanks, Ken. Let's go to Mike with some golf news.
Yes, we do have some golf news today. So we have the sequel to the match, Tiger Woods versus Phil Mickelson. This is going to be called The Match, Champions for Charity. It is tentatively scheduled for the Sunday before Memorial Day, May 24th, being held at Hobe Sound, Florida. And basically, it's going to be Tiger Woods against Phil Mickelson again, but this time they're going to have a partner. So Tiger Woods will be with Peyton Manning, and Phil Mickelson will be with Tom Brady. So very excited for that. Back to you, Zarita.
Thanks, Mike. So here in Canada, Zolty has some updates from the Canadian Football League.
Yeah, so the Canadian Football League has officially asked the Canadian federal government for $150 million in financial aid. The league's proposal included $30 million now to manage the impact of COVID-19 has had on the league's business so far, and then up to another $120 million in the event that the league is actually canceled. The league was supposed to start in June, but they've already moved up the opening weekend to early July. Multiple league sources, however, have stated that the realistic timeline wouldn't let the league start until early September. So that's kind of pushing it close to the end of what the regular season normally would be. The Canadian government has stated they'll look at the proposal, but they have yet to officially respond with a decision. Zarita?
Space. Flying car.
Thanks.
What the future is your destination for all those stories that make
Thanks,
you.
Zolty. And now over to Ben for some promising news for sports in the Philippines.
That's right, Zarita. In the Philippine sports, the Philippine Sports Commission announced that the agency persistently monitors the condition of the national athletes and coaches every day despite the restricted mobility of members of the sports community here in the country because of the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. As you all know, most of the athletes are stuck abroad from their training, like our first Olympic hopeful EJ Obiena, pole vaulter. who trains in Italy and now trains in Italy. He was stuck there and wasn't able to come back here in the country. But all the expenses are being paid by the Philippine Sports Commission. The present situation has greatly affected the sports community here, with all events and activities either canceled or postponed indefinitely. And organizers of the 10 ASEAN Para Games were forced to reschedule the country's hosting of the games in October due to the global calamity that claimed the lives of 14,736 infected and 341,243 people from 192 countries. But that is still questionable due to the status of the growing number of affected here in the country. And also other stories, the Philippine Basketball Association, it's like the counterpart of NBA in the US, has decided to probably cancel the season 45 of the PBA. And due to also some issues with the safety and health of the players and also the audiences and the fans. So there's a possibility that the PBA's season 45 will be canceled this year. And that's for me for Philippine sports here in Manila. And back to you, Sarita.
Thanks, Ben. And our British Columbia correspondent, Anthony Sevilla, has a report about Major League Soccer. Let's take a look.
COVID-19 may have rocked the sports world, but it hasn't stopped the desire of the Vancouver Whitecaps to continue to stay ready for this year's MLS season. Whitecaps defender Jake Nerwinski and midfielder Andy Rose took the time to answer questions from the media regarding the future of the season and gave us an update on their current situation. Both players were asked what they have spent the most time doing during the pandemic.
We have this workout challenge that has been kind of consuming all the players. Our strength coach put it on to see who can log the most workout hours. And I'm priding myself on at least getting top 5. So I think working out has definitely been the thing I've been doing most. The Whitecaps have done an unbelievable job with, supplying us with equipment, for gym and giving us, meal services. I think they've gone above and beyond so far. They're doing great with that. And they're doing great with, keeping us occupied. I think other than working out, I've been working on, trying to learn the piano. And I think some days I have really good days where I'm like, I go for like an hour and I'm doing pretty well. And other days it's 15 minutes and I just want to throw the thing away. But that's kind of where I've been at right now.
Yeah, aside from the workout challenge, obviously it's been an incredible time to spend a lot more time with family. I have a 2-year-old who's full of energy. I actually just had a trampoline delivered this morning, so wish me luck putting that together the rest of the day. And then I've got tons to keep me busy. I'm finishing up my UEFA A license coaching badges at the moment, so there's been quite a few online modules to get sent in before the deadline, and starting up our partnership with SNHU that MLS offers to get a master's in sports management. So plenty going on. If Jack, my son, doesn't keep me busy enough, I've got all that going on. So this time I think everyone needs to get creative and find different ways to spend their time. Obviously, having a family, having a young son, that makes sure there's plenty to do every day.
Nerwinski and Rose both gave their insight on whether or not players from around the league have any sort of interest in playing in front of empty stadiums.
The best case scenario would be we play in front of fans. We want the fans to be there. We want the atmosphere to be like it usually is. But at this point, at what's going on in the world, we have to make sure that we're as safe as possible, like I said before. And if we have the opportunity to play games, we're going to have to do it in some capacity, whatever way that may be, decided upon. The league has been in contact with the PA almost every single day over, what the new updates are, what, the new challenges are, and what are possibilities for this league going forward. So right now, obviously there's just so many uncertainties, so we don't really know what to expect. And I guess, when it happens, we just have to deal with that.
Yeah, look, if it comes to that, I think I don't know if we're quite there yet, and I wouldn't want to speculate on at what point MLS decides that that's the best way forward. But again, you have to think about the best way to play as many games as possible. That's what we all want. So if it gets to that point, then of course I think we all need to be willing to be easy, to roll with it, and do whatever's necessary to, like I said, play as many games as possible this season.
Whitecaps head coach Mark DeSantos and sporting director Alex Schuster also gave us an overview of what's going on within the club and what they are doing to prepare for the foreseeable future.
Look, it's totally out of our control. What we deal with is, and when I have meetings with the staff, is what did we look like in preseason? What did we do well, wrong? What happened in the game against Sporting Kansas City? How did we answer so well in a game in LA that was a record crowd there to see Chicharito, and we went there and not only deserved to win, but won the game. That's all our evaluation. Look at our roster, look at what's next. And we're not questioning anything of when are we going to come back, when's the Canadian Championship, when's the next game of MLS. We can't dwell in that because it's like I said before, it's not very important right now. And when time is going to be there for us to show up again, we'll be ready.
There are bigger problems that have to be solved right now. And I think if the time is the right time, we will find solutions to go on with our competition, and we will be prepared for every single scenario. We are not in Europe where they are running out of time and they don't know how to finish a competition. We are still in a good situation to stay beside of all the other problems and to wait until we get the feeling that the curve flattened, and we should go do what we have to do to take our faces and our social responsibility to help the community, the country, the states to address to people to do the right things, to flatten the curve. And if we can manage that, then we will find a solution for everything else.
Once again, thank you to Jake Nowinski, Andy Rose, head coach Mark DeSantos, and sporting director Alex Schuster of the Vancouver Whitecaps FC for taking the time to answer questions from the media regarding updates within the organization and what to expect in the near future of football in the city. In Vancouver, Anthony Sevilla, Eagle News, we live in interesting times.
Thanks, Anthony. And now you're all caught up with this week's sports news. Don't go away, because after the break, we'll be discussing the latest episodes of the Last Dance documentary, NCAA allowing endorsement deals for their athletes, the NFL draft, and Tiger and Manning versus Brady and Mickelson golf tournament. EBC Sports International will be back in a moment. Welcome back to EBC Sports International. I'm Zarita Sese, broadcasting from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Thanks for staying with us. Before we get into our discussion, we want to remind you that we are no sports experts, just friends discussing the sports we miss. So now let's jump into our discussion. All of us here are big basketball fans, and one of the biggest, if not the biggest names in basketball is Michael Jordan. The latest episode of the Last Dance documentary showed us a different side of the Bulls' Dennis Rodman, and also the ongoing rivalry between the Bulls and the Detroit Pistons. So let's start off our discussion with this question, which I'll direct to Aljabin. Do you think Dennis Rodman would have survived in this era of the NBA?
I don't think the question should be would he survive. I think the question should be like, how could he dominate this league today? If you were to look back at how Dennis Rodman came into the league with the Detroit Pistons, he was coined part of that bad boy era. So for him to come into this era of basketball today, I think he would just dominate over some of the competition today because of who he is. The main worry that I have for Dennis Rodman is fouling out, because the league has gotten a little bit too soft and a little bit too trigger happy with the calls. I think he would probably average at least two ejections. You know, like if he were to get ejected one game, he'll get ejected the next one. It'd be crazy. He would dominate over all the players today. What do you guys think?
Well, I mean, like my thing is that nowadays the 5 spot is a 6'8", 6'9" guy, right? At like 230, 240 pounds. Back in Rodman's days, like the 5 spot, the 4 spot were like 7'1", 7'3" guys at 300 pounds. And he was still dominating, you know, up to like 18 boards a game. And so with his tenacity and his like, you know, they considered him a genius when it came to how he played defense and how he played, how he read rebounds and all that. So if you just literally just pick him up at his prime, put him into this NBA, the dude's going to be averaging like 25, 30 boards easy.
Oh, easy. I mean, this guy. Yeah, I mean, this guy won 2 Defensive Player of the Year awards back to back in the early '90s. So I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that Dennis would absolutely dominate this league, especially with how the rules are today, with so many 3-pointers that are shot today. I mean, he would just totally just position himself to get all these rebounds. I mean, I think he would get more offensive rebounds more than anything, because I feel nowadays, you know, especially with no one really boxing out, with all these 3-pointers that are being shot, he would just have a field day.
Well, especially how tech is. Do you see how the technology, like he was on a TV, like the old school, like TVs, like watching film, right? Like nowadays, like he'd have an iPad, he'd have like an advisor telling him like, all right, well, these guys are always here. You know, it's 87% of the time that their shot like bounces to the left, to the right. He'll have all those statistics, memorize that, and then bring it to the game. Like that's insane, you know.
The problem with him dominating, though, is that he would have to not be suspended. The stuff he was doing back then would get him suspended on a weekly basis here, right? Or like in today's NBA. So it's a totally different game.
But I think, in addition to that, I do agree. But I think all great players, they're always going to adapt. They're always going to adapt to the culture. They're always going to adapt to the game. And I think, you know, Rodman is in my opinion, he's the greatest rebounder ever. So I think he would definitely adapt to the modern culture.
He showed that intelligence in adapting his game and playing with the Detroit Pistons and then transitioning to play with Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen. You know, the way he broke it down on the trajectory of the basketball and how each player shoots, the spin that they put on the ball he would predict on where that ball would bounce off the rim.
Yeah, people think that he doesn't have an offense. You know, like people think that he didn't have an offense because by the time he got to the Bulls, he was playing with 2 offensive juggernauts in Pippen and Jordan, right? But then in the Pistons, that guy. Well, sometimes he was a fool, right? He needed him for offense, and so he would score. So that's like he said it himself, like, yeah, I'll do all these crazy things, but if you ask any of my teammates, they can't complain that I'm one of the best teammates out there. And so I think that's, you know, that would still ring true to today, where like he would be able to bring whatever the team needed.
Well, it's like that story, you know, that story that was mentioned where they're doing that jogging thing around the track.
The Indian run,
the Indian run, and he just gets back from, you know, a week in Vegas, and they're trying to slow it down for him, and he just takes off running, right? Because he's ready to go. He's always in that mentality.
Yeah, for sure. There's like that. Him off the court is kind of a character to deal with. So I'm going to throw a question to you, Ben. How important was it for him to have a coach like Phil Jackson in order to bring out the best in him, or for him to produce on the court?
Thank you very much for that, Zarita. In the episode 3 and 4 of that we watched, Rodman's vibrant personality and affinity to, you know, the lifestyle that he had kind of had a similarity with Phil Jackson when he was still young. And it also showed there how Coach Phil Jackson and Dennis Rodman are similar in their personality, and that's how Phil Jackson was able to connect with Rodman and how he is able to understand him on a different level. And he's the only coach who would understand every player and appreciate what they have. And according to Rodman, he's the only coach I play with who understands me inside and out. Even Michael Jordan also showed how he appreciates Rodman, how he played hard in the court, but doesn't really concern about his lifestyle outside the court. Because as you mentioned, we saw in the episode where he asked Phil Jackson and Michael Jordan to have a vacation for 48 hours, but it lasted more than 48 hours. So he partied for a week or so. And then when Michael Jordan had enough, went to Rodman's hotel room, knocked on his door and asked him to go back to the practice. And then he still has 100% and doesn't have the, sluggish, or he's not even that tired. Like, after the practice, and he's still able to watch the video, studies their opponents, and like what Amin said, Rodman mastered the ability of rebound, and that's why he is the #1 in terms of rebound all time in NBA. And we also have to look at how he took over when Pippen was out and helped Michael Jordan win games. So in that way, we really appreciate how Rodman really stepped up as a second guy for Michael Jordan. And when Pippen came back, and still they were able to win.
You brought up a good point, Ben, because of him coming from Vegas and going straight back to practice. He just had that serious conversation with Mike, and he was ready to turn it back on again. To me, that just shows what kind of competitor Dennis Rodman is, what kind of athlete, and the work ethic that he puts forward. I mean, he might go on vacation, he might disappear to Vegas for a little bit, but when he comes back, it's back to business.
Game time, yeah.
What I mean?
Yeah, but you have to
I'll
also
take that
consider the
teammate
fact
any
that,
day.
as good of a player as Rodman is, he was given to the Bulls for peanuts, right? And that's because he was such a bad teammate for the Spurs. And so that's, I mean, he played very well with the Pistons and with the Bulls, but it's one of those things that you also have to put in part of his career, that there was that time where he, and I think this is the answer to Zarita's question, is that like he needed Phil Jackson as much as Phil Jackson needed him in order for Rodman's skills to be at that time of his career to translate onto the court.
But I think at the end of the day, Jordan was the one that just totally held him in check. I mean, can you imagine you're in your hotel room and like you hear a knock on the door and Jordan's just standing right there and he's like, "Let's get to practice, man." It's like, I mean, that just holds a testament to his leadership, and I mean, he didn't care who you are. He was going to keep you in line, and I think ultimately Jordan's the one that just kept everyone in line as far as getting those championships.
Yeah, can we just back it up a little bit though? Like when he was when he was still part of the bad boy Pistons, that's where, in my opinion, that's where he got that attitude. That's where he got that toughness on the court, right? Like there was clips of him pushing Jordan around like that. When I saw that, I've never seen those clips before. Like it was crazy. So I think that also helped him become the player he was with the Bulls, because I mean he took nothing from no one, right? Like he was his own person, did what he did, and got the job done. And if he didn't have his times with the bad boy Pistons, I don't think he's that type of player. Like let's say he's drafted by the Bulls and just plays with the Bulls the entire time. I don't think he's that type of player in his career.
And don't forget to credit Madonna too for the fashion sense.
And Carmen Electra, right? I mean, I guess.
yeah, exactly.
No, for sure.
In the documentary, it said that Madonna was the one that basically helped him get out of the shell, as far as like not being afraid of who you want to be.
He is. Yeah.
Be who you want to be. That's right.
So blame Madonna, man. That's her fault.
Yeah, the documentary definitely. Definitely has not disappointed, and I cannot wait to see the next episodes. So moving on to the future of the NBA, our next topic is that the NCAA announced their support for rule changes to allow their athletes to earn money for the use of their name, images, and likeness. But such deals do have to come from third parties. So I'm going to throw this question to you, Ken. Do you think the potential changes favors athletes staying for NCAA or going pro in their respective sports?
Well, I think one of the big things that you have to take into note is that the NCAA wouldn't have done this if its top prospects weren't already committing to the G League. And that is a bad look for the NCAA, because it's not necessarily, oh, look, they're finally seeing the light. No, it's because they're losing out on top talent now because these guys want to get paid. And I think my biggest thing is that there's a huge possibility for rampant cheating when it comes to these sponsorships, right? So say, for example, Coach K from Duke has, a five-star prospect that he wants. He's going to be like, hey, look, my point guard right now is already making, $1 million on the side with these sponsorships. Do you want that? And if the kid, grew up like Scottie Pippen or Dennis Rodman poor, they're going to be like, oh, absolutely, let me get on your program. And so I think that's a big concern that that should be taken into account, that the rich get richer, right? These huge schools, Duke, Kentucky, UNC, UCLA, they're going to have all the pull along with their booster programs to be able to continue to recruit top talent, because they'll have all the sponsorships for their players.
Listen, so this doesn't just affect basketball. This affects all the other sports as well. And I'm speaking from experience. I played 3 years of Division I football in the NCAA, and there were times where we would be eating a pack of ramen noodles, and that's all we would have for the day. Parents aren't allowed to send us money. We can't get money from our coaches. And okay, I have to say, I did play at a smaller school, so there wasn't the funding that there is if I played football at like USC or Alabama or something. But this decision, I support it. But like you were saying, Kent, it's going to make the rich richer. These big football schools, so instead of going to the smaller school that I did and having an opportunity to play, I could go to as a walk-on to let's say Alabama, and their entire team will be getting money from commercials and sponsorships and things like that. So I could be making money to play a little bit of football, or I could be going to a smaller school to actually play. So I think a lot of these players who are coming from tough situations will choose to go to these bigger schools. And like you said, these smaller schools are going to suffer because of it.
For me, I don't really see a difference, and the reason why I say that is because even if you took the money out of the equation, I mean, you have the Alabamas, the Dukes for basketball. They're getting the top talent anyways, even without these sponsorships, right? So I mean, at the end of the day, for me, I like it because I'm a firm believer. I think all college players should be making tons of money, especially with the revenues that they bring into each school. But as far as these sponsorships go, I mean, these schools are still getting this top talent anyways without it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's right on point, man.
Yeah, there's a lot more to consider now, especially with athletes making decisions straight out of high school.
Mm-hmm.
When we return, we'll continue our discussion where we'll talk about the NFL draft and the Tiger and Manning versus Brady and Mickelson, who has the edge. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back to EBC Sports International. I'm Zarita Sese, broadcasting from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Thanks for staying with us. So on to our next topic. The NFL conducted their draft this week over video conferencing. So Zolti, who would you say were the winners of this year's draft?
Well, last week we already touched on the Bucks and how they've drafted to make Tom Brady succeed. I'm a Vikings fan, so I'm going to have a little bit of bias here. But in the offseason, we lost three people from the defensive backfield. We lost Stephon Diggs. We went out and we drafted 2 wide receivers. We drafted 5 players from the defensive in the defensive backfield. We covered what we needed to cover. We're going to take the NFC this year.
Are you going to pick up your trading cards, Dolty?
Oh man, that's common.
Oh, I've already got some on order. Don't even worry about that.
So, Mike, what about?
Go ahead.
Mike, what about you? Who do you think the winners are? Do you agree with Solti?
Well, I'm a Hawks fan. I'm biased as well. Seahawks did a pretty good draft, but if I really had to pick, I think the Cowboys had a very strong draft. I think they're definitely all in this year, especially on the offensive side of the ball with CD Lamb from Alabama. That's a huge pick for them because that's going to complement Amari Cooper in the passing game, and I think we're definitely going to win the NFC East. That's my prediction. So I say the Cowboys.
For me, it's not even a team. I know the guy gets a lot of criticism, and I know a lot of it is justified, but I got to give an A+ to Roger Goodell for hosting the NFL draft at all. Now all this stuff is crazy. I know I announced earlier that the NBA draft and combine are postponed, but I mean, look, the NFL was able to do it. All these players that needed this time, that have been training for all this time for all their lives, and been preparing. They were able to get to get to their respective teams. All these teams that have been preparing were able to pick up who they wanted. So, I mean, I feel like with the current situation as it is, Roger Goodell gets passing A+ from me in regards to how he handled having this draft.
But an F at pronouncing the players' names.
Oh yeah. He didn't have a staff on hand, so what can you do?
It's funny that you mention the draft and basically making sure that everything runs smoothly. But I don't know about you guys, but there was something about having the athletes in their own environment, in their home, with their family, surrounded by their family, that made that moment even more special. I don't know if you guys saw those videos, but I'll throw a question to you, Ben. Do you think that having it in their homes, very private, circumstances, do you think that adds value to a draft like this? Maybe this is something that can be considered for the future.
Well, this is the new normal. There's nothing we can do about it. We have to adapt on all the changes that's happening. Just to share who's the winners on this draft, just to share some of my little knowledge on NFL would be, I think the Miami Dolphins. I'm such a big fan as well of Miami Dolphins when I was still young. It would have been disappointing for Miami if they didn't wind up on with their pick, and they landed a potential franchise quarterback in Alabama's Tua Tagovailoa, potential starting tackle in USC's Austin Jackson, and also Zolti. I think I also believe in that Minnesota Vikings was also a winner for this draft as well. But we will see if anything, if this goes on, and we'll see how they perform, all the draftees, and it's all about doing the work and playing the game. We'll see who plays well, and even though if you're a draft pick in the top pick and you didn't play well, then we will see who's going to be the best team entering the new season. But for me, in every sport, of course, there's still a problem for everyone. But like in other sports, they're trying to look into trying to allow sports that has social distancing. So we'll see if everything improves and we will see more sports to open up and be played outdoors.
No, for sure. Yeah,
I think
great
if there's
points.
a loser of the NFL draft, it would be the city of Las Vegas. I mean, not even the team. Not even the team, but the entire city, man.
No.
You're supposed to have the draft here, bro.
It was
And that
announced.
would've
It's
been,
happening
like,
in 2 years.
Well, I mean, I'm talking about right now. Like it should have been here, and like the economy would have been booming right now. I think this has nothing to do with sports, but like the housing market over here probably would have been booming too. But right now it's a little bit on the decline. But I mean, if it's for sure going to be happening here soon, then I'm for sure looking forward to that. And hopefully, come out here, Zolti.
I'll be there. And you know what? Roger Goodell actually mispronounced that too. He was trying to say 2022 NFL draft, and he said 2020 NFL draft in Las Vegas.
Perfect. Beautiful.
Oh man.
Oh man. So just a general question for any of you guys. Was there a specific team that you believe drafted in the complete opposite of what their team actually needed?
The Philadelphia Eagles.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say that too. I didn't get that.
You drafted Carson Wentz 3 years ago,
Didn't
and
extension.
you take Jalen Hurts in the second round? And there's so many other needs that you need. It's ridiculous.
Well, that and the Green Bay Packers, man. Come on.
Oh, I get that.
I don't have a problem with the Packers.
Oh, you don't have a problem with that? I mean, like,
I don't have a problem with the pick. I have a problem with how they did it. They didn't inform Aaron Rodgers they were picking a quarterback. So that was a complete shock to him.
I don't have to tell Aaron.
Come on, yes you do. That's your franchise quarterback. He's led you to Super Bowls. You have to let him know.
If you look at Rodgers' last 3 years, if you look at Rodgers' last 3 years, decline. He's
That's fine, but you have to just let him know. It's not even a big conversation. Just let him know, like, look, we're gonna get you the help. We have this many draft picks. We have the second round. We can trade, but we're picking a quarterback because we feel that in a few years' time, you're not gonna want to be here.
I get that.
We're picking the future.
Historically,
Rodgers got Brett Favre. Like that's essentially what happened.
But historically, Rodgers does not get along with the front office in Green Bay.
Rodgers doesn't get along with anyone. He's gone from his family. Like he doesn't talk to his family.
He's gonna have one last dance. That's what's gonna happen. He's gonna have the last dance of Aaron Rodgers, and then he's gonna talk about his own Krause, and that's.
I'll tell you what's gonna happen. This is what's gonna happen. He's gonna get mad at the Packers for this. He's gonna request a trade. No one's gonna want him because the price tag's too high. They're gonna release him. He's gonna sign with the Vikings. We're gonna win 3 Super Bowls in a row, and then he's gonna retire.
He's gonna Brett Favre at that also.
Yo, that would be high.
Exactly.
He's gonna follow Brett Favre, huh?
But I haven't really seen tape on that Jordan Love kid. So I mean, it all depends if he can play well. I mean, if he plays well, it's a good move. If not, then.
You know what I'm curious about is that, like, with the limiting of like actual combines and meetings with all these players, how many of these scouting teams, how many of them had it wrong? Obviously we'll figure this out later on when the season actually starts. But I mean, the scouting this year has probably been like different, and it's like the first of its kind because of all this pandemic stuff. So I'm curious how many people are gonna not just get a bunch of bad players, or I'm curious are the ones who are gonna get the sleeper guys, like the ones that were drafted in the later rounds, like a Tom, like who's going to be the Tom Brady, or are there going to be multiple Tom Bradys this year because of how the scouting had to happen?
Right. Yeah, that's always.
Well, I'll tell you what. You're not gonna figure out who won or lost the draft in reality for another 2 to 3 years, because that's how long it takes for players to fizzle out. You'll get these superstars like Joe Burrow, who's going to succeed, probably instantly. But as far as Jordan Love, you were saying you weren't really following him, or someone was saying they weren't really following him, so they're not really sure his talent. I would have picked him over Tua at number 5 for the Dolphins.
Yeah. Would you have picked him if he didn't stay an extra year after he won? And he just went straight into. Let's say if he was allowed to go straight into the NFL, like rules wise, right? Would you have picked them over Burrows?
Listen, no. Well, Burrows had a horrible year last year, but the entire LSU offense was terrible last year. So they helped him out this year. He obviously dominated, won the Heisman Trophy, and he's going to be the franchise quarterback in.
I just wish he was drafted to a better team, because as far as the front office and like his overall staff and players, Cincinnati, I don't know if that's going to be we'll find out, but I just wish he was drafted to just a better organization overall.
Where do you think Dalton's going to go, Mike?
Dalton, I see him going to New England. I think New England. But it doesn't matter. It won't matter. I mean,
he's going to be a backup anyway. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I feel like he's a perfect pickup for a New England type offense.
They don't have. Who's he going to throw to?
Yeah, well, that's fair. I mean, Belichick does some crazy things, so.
Yeah, we'll see. I think I would favor New England or I'd probably say they're definitely in the running. I think Jags maybe too, but we'll see.
Yeah, so like Zolti said, I think it's going to take a couple years for us to actually see what would come out of this draft, who the winners and losers are. So moving on to our next topic. Earlier, Mike reported on some golf news where big names were going to come together and support the COVID relief. So I'll throw a question out to you, Eamon. This is supposed to be a friendly competition for a good cause, but honestly, who do you think has the edge in this match?
I think Mickelson and Tom Brady. I think Tom Brady is going to be able to provide that edge for them. I don't know. I think Tom Brady's like his competitive spirit would provide that edge there. I mean, I haven't seen him as a golfer, but I don't know. But
yeah, he's good. Brady's a scratch golfer.
Yeah. You're I looked at the who's favorite. It's by a wide margin. It's Woods and Manning. I mean, there's a reason for that. I mean, other than the fact that Mickelson won the first round with these two, Tigers on. I don't know, man. Like, well, what's hard too is that how many times have people been wrong about Tiger, having the number one spot, winning all these tournaments. It's so hard when it comes to golf, and I know you know this more than anyone of us here, Mike. But they give Tiger the benefit of the doubt, whether that's good or not. He gets the benefit of the doubt as far as ranking for a tournament. More often than not, and I think in this case it's valid. We saw Tiger a couple months ago, and just the aura that he has. I think he has that Mamba mentality for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think if Tiger was paired up with Brady, it would be Tiger and Brady all day. I mean, I think they purposely kind of switched it around because of personalities. I think Phil Mickelson's kind of like the extroverted type. Same for Peyton Manning. So they kind of paired him up with like the two introverts, with this Tiger and Brady, right?
Right.
Yeah, I think obviously Woods and Peyton Manning had the edge. I mean, it's Woods has been playing extremely well these past few months. Even in San Diego, when Kevin and I saw him in person, I mean, his swing is there. His feel around the green is great. Obviously, Mickelson does have the edge because he did win their one-on-one, but Peyton Manning he plays in all the pro-ams, so I mean, he has game as well. So it's definitely going to be fun. But for me, I have Woods and Peyton Manning as much as of a Braves fan than I am.
I agree that it's going to be Woods and Manning. I agree with that. But this is another reason why Tom Brady's not going to succeed in Tampa. He needs to focus on football. Why is he playing golf?
Last week.
Why is he playing golf in this tournament style game with It doesn't make sense. Focus on what you're doing at the moment. Like, why are you playing golf in this? Tiger and Peyton Manning are gonna dominate this little competition they have. Mickelson might beat Woods, but Manning's gonna take out Brady no matter what. Unlike he did in the NFL. I'll say that.
Well, Woods and Peyton Manning have been playing together a lot for golf, so I guess the experience of Manning playing golf versus Brady, I think that's an advantage for him. And also they've been playing together for quite some time. Not sure with Brady and Mickelson.
So my final question for you guys is, there's a lot of pressure on owners and things like that to supplement the income that's lost. Do you think that other sports should follow suit in order to raise money, whether it be for their organizations, other charities, other COVID relief efforts? Do you guys think, other sports should jump into this bandwagon?
Oh, absolutely.
Go ahead, Mike.
No, I was going to say absolutely. I think it's a perfect time to not take advantage, but to raise money, especially for charitable organizations. And everybody's craving sports right now. I mean, it's just a common, everybody relates to it. I think any type of sports from any of the major sports would be, views through the roof. So I think they should do something, whether it be like a 3-on-3 tournament with the NBA or like a home run derby sort of thing with baseball. They can do a lot of creative stuff to make that happen.
For me, what's your specific question? Like, I was I'm kind of disappointed with that. Not more owners are, stepping up and saying, "Oh, we're going to cover these salaries for a certain amount of time," especially for the teams that for the leagues that have seasons going on or upcoming. And instead, it's the players of these big teams. I don't even know which players to mention, but there's countless players in countless leagues that are donating their own money to help fund these employees versus these billionaire owners who have money for multiple generations. They're not even like stepping up to the plate. Instead, like some of them will be like, "Oh, let's raise money for so and so." I was like, "Man, you have money in your bank. Give it to the people that have worked so hard for you." All these employees at this time at the time that they need it the most. I think that speaks way more than any of these, like, let's do a fundraiser, especially when you are the fundraiser yourself.
Right. I think one of the owners, Mark Cuban of the Dallas Mavericks,
Mark Cuban,
he's done,
except for him,
an exponential.
Michael Jordan.
Exceptional things. Michael Jordan as well. I think they're a different type of owner. They're a little bit more proactive. They connect with the younger generation a little bit more. And I think what Mark Cuban has done to providing meals for their communities and even just like the relationship that he holds with his players and his coaching staff. I remember, Mike, we were watching the game and he was there on the sideline talking to his players, talking to his coaches and things like that on what is going on in the world. And I think that if a lot more owners were to be in those to follow Mark Cuban's model of how an owner should be, I mean, I think you'd have the general public like praising you for all these little things that you can do as an owner. Like, you got money, dude.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just real quick on the side, the Lakers asked for the stimulus package for the small businesses, and they only returned it. I know for a fact they only returned that stimulus package because they were pressured by social media. And I'm just like, Lakers are like literally one of the richest organizations. As much as a fan as I am of them, they're one of the richest organizations for sports, globally. And for them to ask for like help during this time was instead of like leaving that money for other actual small businesses that needed it, was a little disappointing. Actually, very disappointing to hear. I mean, they gave it back eventually, but I mean, that's. They
probably look at the amount and said, "Nah, never mind."
Yeah. Speaking on the on this topic, speaking on this topic with the Canadian Football League, with the story that I mentioned earlier, it's tough for owners in the Canadian Football League to do that because there's 8 teams in the league and 3 of them are community owned. So there is no one specific owner. Members of the community buy a share in the team, and then they're an owner. So there's no real money for them to give the employees. So that's the reason, the Canadian Football League is asking the government for this $150 million. And I know the NFL has a team like that too, which is the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, the Packers.
So it's kind of the teams that can do it should, but it's a bit unfair to that can't do it. That's just my take on it.
Right.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
I think each league should have their own struggles. Each person is kind of dealing with the repercussions of COVID for sure. But that's actually all the time that we have for this week's edition of EBC Sports International. Before we go, we would like to say a special happy birthday greeting to the Christian Family Organization Coordinator, Brother Angelo Irano V. Manalo. Happy birthday, Brother Angelo.
Happy birthday, Bob. Happy birthday.
Make sure to visit our website at eaglenews.net and eaglenewslive.com. If you want to take part in our conversation, be sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/eaglenewsph, where you can share your thoughts and comment. On behalf of everyone on our panel, thank you for joining us and be sure to tune in next week. I'm Zarita and we live in interesting times.
Go Hawks.